Alright, welcome to the second video. This is where we are going to be taking a look at the materials and everything that we're going to be using for the next build. So, we've got our template there, which I completed this morning. You can see the pickup cavities right there for the DiMarzio pickups. That is where the hip shot bridge is going to go. There's a look at the box for that 7-string hip shot bridge. For our pickups, we've got this one here, which is an Air Norton 7-string, and then this one is a Tone Zone. Wherever, there we go. Maybe it looks better in the sun. Nope, not quite. There's our tuning pegs that we're going to be using. Here's a look at the bird's eye maple for the neck. One thing to note is I had to get a wider than usual piece of wood for that. Usually I'll use about 3-inch wide, but if you can see the width of the headstock there, I needed something a lot wider, or else I'd have to make wings, basically doing joints, which I want to avoid doing. So this way, all we have to do is make the cut and reverse it so that we get the angled headstock on there, but that is the only joint that we're going to have to do. Alright, here's some fretboard pieces. Not sure which one I'm going to use. I think that's just regular maple. It's got some really cool lines on it. And then here we've got bird's eye maple, which I'm probably going to use bird's eye for both that and the neck. We will see. And then here's a look at the body. It is mahogany. It is a 3-piece body. You can't really tell that it's been jointed. It looks really good, actually. You can see the joints maybe right there, and probably not because of the shadow. But this would look really good even if just as a natural finish, I think. But we're going to be priming it and painting it a solid color, which you'll see on the build. Hey guys, welcome to day one of actually working on the guitar build. This is usually the point of the day when I would be shirtless, but for the, I guess you could say, the decency of this production, I'm going to keep my shirt on for most of it, hopefully. It is fairly hot out here. I've gotten everything set up already. I got the bandsaw clamped right here. I already took the template and drew on it, gave it a center line, everything like that, so I know where I'm going to cut. But we're going to be starting with the bandsaw, and I'm going to be making cuts, getting rid of all the excess material first. I do want to try to save as many large chunks of wood as possible because I plan to use this for future projects as well. So with that, we've got an hour or two of daylight left, so we'll see how much we can get done today. Alright, a couple things I want to note right there. So obviously I'm using a fairly small bandsaw, and it can be difficult to make um, cuts on thick wood, thick dense wood like this is. We're using mahogany right now. So you might have noticed at one point the blade got stuck, but I was able to get it back out and everything was fine. But what you really should be doing is making relief cuts prior to making like your long cuts, and that's going to make everything easier. Your blade won't get stuck. So there's a lot of that is usually what I would do, but in this case I was trying to salvage as big of a chunk of wood as I could, which I managed to do here. So I'm going to use this for some other things. I also got these two as well, so I got a few decent chunks that I can use for some other projects. Otherwise I would be cutting them into smaller pieces as I go to avoid any issues with the blade. Now the next step is to route it, and I'm going to basically put the template on here, clamp it all down, and then just start routing away. There are also two other things I want to note real quick. First is this. This is just a cheap $1 brush that I've been using, paintbrush. I use it as my duster brush. Extremely important. It's better than just about anything at brushing it away and keeping your area clean and whatnot. Or if you need to, see your lines or whatnot because of sawdust. It makes it easy to clean out the bandsaw real quick too after you use it, or a belt sander or spindle sander or anything like that. Second thing is my dust mask. This is probably the worst dust mask on the planet, but it's all I've got. Apparently with the pandemic, they either stopped making these or they just don't have any. I can't even get your typical dust masks online, the ones that I usually like to use. My last ones were shot, but I had these, so that's all I have at the moment. I have the router set up. You can take a look at the bit that I am going to be using. It's got a bearing on it. That way it's going to follow the edge of the template that I have right here. I use masking tape and super glue to hold all of this, and then I have it clamped down here as well. I have a different bit that I'll probably end up using after this, but as you can see, this is a long bit. My intention is to remove as much material as quickly as I can. Yeah, we're not going to worry about these right now. Probably end up doing these another day at this point. One thing you'll notice, this template, I did not cut off the neck here. I wanted to leave that on. So when we get over here, I'm not going to route that right now. I always recommend these if you're using something like this. first part is done. As you can see, there are some burn marks on it in various places. Usually that means just went too slowly, so the blade or the bit kind of just burned into it as we went. That's not going to be an issue. We're going to be sanding this out. Those will sand out just fine. So as you can see, we did a little over half of all of this. So now to do the rest, I'm going to switch to the other bit with the bearing on the other side, and it's going to use this as its guide, and then we'll just cut this other side. So we're going to clamp it like this. Always make sure you unplug everything before you try to attempt to change a bit. So what we've got here is a Forstner bit on my drill, and what we're going to do is take out some material here. We're about to cut out the neck pocket, and we want to make sure we get as much material out of here as we possibly can. I've marked the lines on the side there about 18 millimeters, I believe, deep. That way I know I don't want to go any further than that. So I'm going to be drilling a little bit less, and we're going to finish with routing in just a bit here. The bit that I'm using, if you can see that, got a bearing on it. This is typically the way I would recommend doing routing, especially on the internal parts. It's a much shorter bit than the one I used before. You want to just take a little bit of material off at a time. So it's going to be a little bit here the first pass through, but then I'm going to work it a little bit slower each time, each pass that I make. The other thing I want to note is I have not rounded this or done it exactly the way it's going to be. I'm not really concerned about that right now. We're just going to take off all this material. That's fine that I can take it down, and then I'm going to properly shape that with sanding once I have everything else sort of done here. So that's our plan. We're going to be using this to follow it, held down by masking tape and super glue. Clamp down, should be good to go. Alright, so easy, this still sticks out too far from when I cut it originally, because we had the neck attached to the template that I was using. It is not a big deal. We're going to measure out where we want to cut it. I'm going to cut it where I want, and then we're going to sand and figure all that out. We're going to basically use a leveling beam is what I'm going to do to make sure that this is all flat. I cut it just very slightly above the marks that I made, so I have room to go down and make sure that it's all even with the leveling beam. So that's how we're going to make sure it's all nice and flat. As you can see, it fits the template that I have made pretty well. So anyways, next we are going to take this off. And now we're going to go grab the other template, pop that back on here, and we are going to do the pickup cavity. We're going about 20 millimeters deep, I think, is about what we want for these. So we're going to drill out material first, and then we will route. things real quick. We are switching to this bit, if you can see that. Can't really focus it. Anyways, we're switching to this bit. This one, what is this, a 3/8 I believe, with the bearings and everything. We're just going to run this real quick to get the little areas where the pickup protrudes over there. So we're just going to run through this real quick with it. Whenever you change out your router bits, always make sure you unplug your router. Alright, so we have about the depth that I was looking for. I wanted about 20 millimeters. That's about where we're at, maybe 19.5. We can always go a little bit deeper. I'll test out the pickups, see how they're going to kind of fit in there, make sure everything fits nice. If not, then we'll go back, go a little bit deeper, clean it up. But as you can see, looks pretty clean, pretty much ready to go. Nice and centered. We've done most of the routing actually, minus the edge of the body here, which we're going to round over. I'm going to run a test or two before I do that. After the round over, we're going to be shaping back here. We're going to be doing some shaping here. We may even thin this out a decent amount too, which if I do, I'll probably thin it out from the back rather than the front, because we have all the depths and everything that we want here. If you can see this. So this is the neck template that I have that I've showed you earlier, and we go right here. You can tell it is just a little bit too big. I can't quite fit it in there. That is exactly what I want. I'm going to be sanding this out a little bit here, getting it all nice and even and smooth, so it's just going to be a little bit bigger. We can always sand this down a little bit to get it a nice tight fit. We don't want this just going in there as it is, so we'll be shaping the edges and everything like that to make sure that it fits nice. I'm actually probably going to sand this a little bit more right in the center there. That is where we're going to end this one. I feel like we got a lot done in the last day or two. Now we're going to be ready to start doing some of the finer shaping of the body. We'll figure out how wide we want the body to be. We may modify that. A little bit more work with the router, and then it's going to be a lot of rasps, probably some work with the angle grinder as well. In the meantime, I also plan to start on the neck, and that way we can get the joint sanded, glued, and ready to go. So that's one of the things I plan to work on this weekend. That way we have that going at the same time as the body, and there will come a point when maybe we can't work on one because the paint's drying, something like that, glue's drying, so we're going to have something else to work on. That way we make the most use of our time. So with that, I'm going to conclude the first video here. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you like the start of this build. We've still got a long way to go, but yeah, we're well on our way to getting this one done.